Okay, this is part 3 of the 9 Ethiopian guides, and we're going to continue with number 7. I promise to uphold justice and rightness at all times to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability. Number 8. I promise I will fight hard for liberation and freedom for the Ethiopian race, and when it is liberated and free, I will work just as hard to keep our liberty and freedom preserved to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability. Number 9. Consequently, I promise that before my physical death I will arrange for my lifeless body to be cremated and the remains distributed at the roots of an evergreen tree or some other suitable place willed by the deceased. I also seriously promise by Ethiopian forces of nature by this 9th guide to maintain the promises of all 9 Ethiopian guides for an existence in liberty, freedom, preservation, well-being, and success, with the understanding that if I fail to keep my promises to the best of my knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and ability, I will soon join the physical dead. And speaking of equality brings us to number 7 of the 9 Ethiopian guides, for justice and rightness work in unity with equalness. In fact, the two are based on parity. A person can be only as just as or right as the knowledge he has access to, and only as just or right in accord with correct knowledge as his nature dictates. In other words, a person cannot be just and right if he does not have the definition and knowledge of justice and rightness. And even though a person may have the definition and knowledge of these factors, he can only practice them to the degree that his nature is just and right, unless forced into them further by circumstances. Justice is the balance of the opposites in accord with the cycle in which one lives. Justice is eyes for eye and teeth for tooth, because an aggressor, according to the laws of nature, does not get returned to him just the amount of damage he did, but must also pay for being the aggressor. When anyone tempers justice with mercy, it ceases to be justice any longer. We woolly-haired Ethiopians represent justice by nature because we have the greatest capacity for reaching the highest standards of nature and maintaining them. Get and read booklet 2 of Bible Interpretation and Explanations, originally authored by Afra Una and revised in 2014, for that booklet will further detail the nature and laws of justice and rightness. It will suffice here to state that justice and rightness are the nature of us Ethiopians in our cycle and in our right mind. Our right mind is our 9 knowledge mind, our mind of 9 reason. We Ethiopians are responsible for restoring true justice and rightness because mankind, being animal, is not capable of reaching and maintaining the state of real justice and rightness. Those who practice justice are also practicing rightness. Rightness is the laws and way of general nature. The dictates of the nature of a person, place, or thing are rightness for that person, place, or thing. In other words, the nature of a thing is right for it because a thing exists best when it adheres to its own nature. Some people believe means one does not know, that going to church makes people good or right, but this is a false belief, as most religious beliefs are. The facts are, whether a person goes to church or not, that individual will do whatever his or her nature dictates. If the person is positive by nature, he or she will be as right as the person has the knowledge and ability to be, whether he goes to church or not. On the other hand, if a person is negative by nature, he or she will do the wrong or negative things which the person's nature demands, whether the individual goes to church or not. Hence, rightness for a person, place, or thing is its own nature. However, the highest standards attainable in absolute nature, all space, all matter, and all time, by its laws, are the highest form of rightness and justice practicable. And this is the target for all Ethiopians to shoot at. The target to shoot at is outlined in the booklets The 9 Ball. and all Ethiopians who are enlightened or mentally resurrected will fight mentally and physically when reasonable and practical for our liberation and freedom, and maintenance of them once they are attained, as number 8 of the 9 Ethiopian gods requires. There is nothing wrong with fighting verbally and violently for our liberation and freedom when we have a chance to win. It is foolish to fight physically when we only have a chance to lose and see ourselves be put deeper into captivity and oppression mentally and physically than before. There is no liberation and freedom obtainable in the world of animaldom without bloodshed. But that bloodshed must be on the battlefield when we have a chance to win, and the bloodshed must be mostly from the veins of the enemy. A person should defend himself or herself mentally and physically at all times to the best of his and her knowledge and ability, but it should always be done as reasonable and practical as possible. That is to say, when you do not have a chance to win, you will destroy yourself by trying. Use your best mind first at all times for self-defense, then whatever else you can succeed in doing. There is no victory in death as the dead would have us believe, unless it is death of the enemy. Death is defeat. When you shed more blood than the enemy, that is defeat. When you suffer more death than the enemy, that is defeat. When you fight verbally and physically with the enemy, and when the fight subsides, the enemy is still the best in whatever you were fighting over, that is defeat. Let's fight, but fight when and where it is reasonable and practical and winnable. It is reasonable, practical, and winnable for us to fight first with 9 knowledge noon, for 9 knowledge noon gives us Ethiopians the proper guide and helps the sun change the gases of the atmosphere to our favor. Our minds emanate gases. If our minds are negative, the gases are negative and against us. If our minds are positive, the gases are positive and for us. And positive gases of 9 help this 9 sun change the atmosphere to the positive cycle that is growing now. The gases of the atmosphere working on and with our minds are what control and rules. But ghouls, ghosts, and demons in the atmosphere and in people will control and rule us Ethiopians so long as we allow our dead bodies to be buried instead of cremated. In other words, as long as we follow doctrines and ways of the dead in mind and those who represent the dead in body, we will continue to be held captive and oppressed by the dead. Number 9 of the 9 Ethiopian gods require that we cremate our deceased relatives and the flesh of all dead animals which is not stored for food, so that their bodies cannot ferment death gases that permeate the atmosphere and strengthen and multiply ghouls, ghosts, and demons in general. Because in turn, these spirits of death exist by preying on the living, by subsisting on their blood, and by causing oppression, suppression, repression, diseases, murders, insanity, sex perversion, deformities, etc. And all of these activities are the acts of negative forces of nature called conscious death gases, who cause suffering and death through mankind so that those negative forces may survive. Burying dead bodies of anything instead of cremating them increases the power of the dead, the negative forces of nature, to prey on the living and cause the physical living to suffer, shed blood, and die. Cremating dead bodies help lessen and destroy negative forces and help break the spell of their control over us, that they may live longer and in greater ease. A dead body should be cremated as soon as its identity is established and those concerned have a chance to view it. It should never be allowed to reach a point of odorous decay. It should be cremated immediately and it remains deposited at the roots of an evergreen tree. Some other suitable place willed by the deceased or determined by the relatives. Number 9 of the gods also provides for sworn adherence to the promises made by the Ethiopian with 9 Ethanupu, the Ethiopian forces of nature, that he or she will exist in liberty, freedom, preservation, well-being, and success, as long as these 9 promises are kept to the best of the Ethiopian's knowledge, wisdom, equal standing, and ability. And if the Ethiopian does not keep his promises to his forces for his own survival and well-being, that person has committed suicide and will die physically because he or she does not deserve to live. Ethiopians, male and female, read and study these 9 Ethiopian guides carefully and in your own way. After equal standing and accepting 9 knowledge, pledge to your creative forces, 9 Ether Sun, that you will forever adhere to the 9 Ethiopian guides, and by the forces of nature and time, you will be liberated mentally and physically and be successful in anything you decide to undertake, provided it is in accord with the 9 Ethiopian guides and 9 knowledge in general. Remember, what seems to be best for you to do as an individual may not be best for your race as a whole, but what you do that is best for your Ethiopian race as a whole is always best for you and your immediate family. Let's discard the former and practice the latter. It's the intelligent thing to do for survival and well-being. My name is Tawabo Unawa-Net, and my name translates to the first black step to rise out of 9 ether waters of noon. Thanks for watching. I hope you've seen the beauty and the intelligence in the 9 guides that was written for our race. True peace.